What's up guys, DK here with Collector's Impact, and today we're going to talk about the notion of junk slabs. This is a topic that has been coming up more and more in the collectibles sphere here when it comes to graded cards, mostly because PSA, everybody knows by now, obviously I did a video on it on this channel a few days ago, but PSA shut their doors down for new submissions for about 3 months so that they can catch up on their backlog because they keep getting flooded with cards. So a lot of people have been getting angry about the situation, you know, understandably, I get it. And they've been talking about, well, if people just didn't send in junk to grade, then they wouldn't be as backed up. People need to quit with the junk slabs. So that's one huge thing. There's also this notion that junk slabs could ultimately be what ends up crashing the card craze for the 2020s here so far. There are a lot of interesting viewpoints and opinions on this, so Collector's Impact is going to go ahead and join in the conversation. I have made a list of 10 rules regarding junk slabs. Quick disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor or anything like that. I am a collector of cards. I have a lot of experience in collecting, selling, buying, trading, and holding cards for many, many years, both professionally and as a hobby. So this is just my 2 cents. I'm just a dude on YouTube. But for your entertainment purposes and for the conversation at hand, here are my 10 rules regarding junk slabs. And just the quick YouTube stuff, of course. If you like this type of content, please give the video a thumbs up. It greatly helps the channel and the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And if you like this video by the end, definitely subscribe to the Collector's Impact. Would love to see you on the subscriber list and to join us along this fun ride with collectibles and cards. So, rule number 1. If you're going to sell the card, are you going to at least break even on the sale? In other words, is the card that you are sending off to be graded and it receives the grade that you expect? That's pretty key. We'll get to that later. But if you get what you think you're going to get for the card that you're sending in, will it at least break even? That includes the cost of the raw card itself, the cost of the grading fee, the shipping and handling, any related seller fees, shipping fees, eBay fees, PayPal fees, yada, yada, yada. Will you at least break even? The first example here would be this Zion Williamson PSA 9 from Hoops, 2019, his rookie card. So obviously sending this in, I bought this on the secondary market, but sending it in, I'm sure that the person who sent it in wanted the 10. It ended up getting a 9, and they were able to flip it to me for about $50. So at the end of the day, if they bought a raw box, opened the cards, and then they calculated the average cost per card, if that's how they were doing it, or whatever, however you want to calculate it or whatever, this card ended up selling for $50. I think that this one passed rule number 1's test. Not surprisingly, obviously, this is Zion Williamson. He's a pretty big star, so there's no reason for that not to pass the test. In fact, all of these examples pass the test, but we'll get into more nuances with these as we go on. All right, so for rule number 2, does the card have inherent collectibility? Now, the caveat to that is it can be a niche market. It doesn't have to be desired by everyone in the world. You know, of course, there are cases of that, and we'll get into that as we go on. But does the card, as a general rule, have inherent collectibility? It's pretty key. All right, let's start with the most obvious example out here, which is this Cancel. Cancel, well, it's a decent card. It's like a counterspell light because you have to pay that extra mana, so, you know, whatever. But inherent collectibility in this card, collectibility being value and desire for an actual collection other than just use in a certain random edge case scenario. Is it worth grading? No. That is a junk card. That would be a definite junk slab. It would not meet rule number 1, and it certainly doesn't meet rule number 2, and it's not going to meet any of the other rules either, except maybe one way down the line. So yeah, that's a clear and prime example of a junk card that you would never want to send in. So let's go ahead and talk about Batman. I'm Batman. So with Batman, of course, he has a fan base, right? There is a definite fan base for Batman, and this particular card is from the 1994 Skybox DC Masterpieces set. Quick plug, if you want to see a box opening of that, it is on the channel. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But back to Batman. So he is a highly collectible character, super famous DC character, and this artwork cannot be denied that it is beautiful. So yeah, this is definitely not a junk card. Now, when it comes to its inherent value, rule number one, yeah, you might break even, or if the market continues to heat up for these particular cards, it might be worth quite a bit more money. So it's not a junk card. There are plenty of people out there who may say, this is a junk card, printed into oblivion, blah, 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 blah. But nope, this is not, it's not a junk card. Definitely not. Now, you switch to Power Girl here, and this card, does it have inherent collectability? I would say no. The artwork is pretty ugly, let's be real, and the card itself, it's kind of like this super B character. No one's like, ooh, I can't wait to see Power Girl. You know, it's just, now it may be, yeah, we'll get into something else later, but it's, for rule number two, does it have inherent collectability? No. So that currently is junk slab material. Now, next one, Evolving Wilds. Let's take a look at this artwork. So do you guys know what's special about this particular artwork? This particular art is from the Bob Ross Secret Lair. So this is actually one of Bob Ross's paintings that he did. And Evolving Wilds, as a general rule, is a common card in Magic the Gathering here. But this particular version of it is highly collectible because of that special artwork and very low limited print run. So this definitely does meet the categories for number two, for rule number two. Does it have inherent collectability? Absolutely it does. All right, guys, this one's definitely going to be fun. So rule number three, is the card easy to get in mint condition right now? That's a pretty key question. How rare is the condition of the card? Because number one, when you're grading cards, more, 99% of the time, we'll say, maybe 95% of the time, you're going for a high grade. That's where the value comes from grading a card. Doesn't matter what service you're going to use, PSA, CGC, SGC, blah, 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 ABC, DDD, it doesn't matter. Whatever you use, high grades are the name of the game as a general rule. Now, is the card easy to get? So, in mint condition. So let's start with this one. This is the new and highly desired Chalice of the Void in the old school border style. Now, this is kind of a trick question for this card. Is it easy to get in mint condition right now? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it's from a brand new product. So there's actually a lot of this product in the market at the current time, but the caveat is it's a short print, brand new product, and these particular printings of the card, this old school border, are only available in that product, and they fetch a pretty high price tag, considering when you talk about just Magic cards in general, especially more modern age cards, this card is pretty expensive at around $50 or so for the raw card. Now, is it easy to get in mint condition? In the year 2021, in the month of April, that is a yes, it is. But you have to also put a little bit of forethought into this. You have to really think about this. In the year 2030, assuming that they don't reprint it to oblivion, which theoretically they should not, but you never know with Wizards. But in the year 2030, will this card be easy to get in mint condition? I'll let you guys decide that. Now, actually, we'll just transition into this one. This is a first edition Pikachu from Jungle from 1999. Is this card easy to get in mint condition in the year 2021? And that answer is no. Back when this card came out, it is a common card. So you see the little circle? That means common. This was a very, very easy to get card in 1999, but we're not in 1999, and this card hasn't been printed in 22 freaking years. So it's it's very old, it's very rare, even though it's a common. And when it comes to gradability, this card in a PSA 10 is worth hundreds of dollars. Maybe, it was going for even more during the extreme craze with Logan Paul and all that. But yeah, this card is worth a lot of money in mint condition. So it's definitely because they were played with. A lot of kids played with these cards back when this card came out. They shuffled them up, they threw them around on the ground. There's just not a lot of mint ones. This one, however, is mint. This is pack mint. This is definitely, when PSA reopens their doors, this is in a submission that I'm going to be sending to them, no doubt. Yeah, assuming that they don't raise the prices, you guys. That's another huge factor in all of this. It goes back to rule number 1. Are you going to even break even on the card? If you're paying $300 to grade a freaking card, even if this is going to potentially be a $500 card, I wouldn't risk that. But if you're paying $20, yeah, sure. Now, here's another one. I'll try to speed this up for this particular rule. This is a full art foil planes from Theros Beyond Death. Is it easy to get in 2021 in mint condition? Yeah, it's pretty easy to get. Some of the collector boxes had 2 lands per pack. I know you get only 12 packs in a box instead of 36, but in terms of rarity, they're not that rare in mint condition in current year. Same kind of scenario as Chalice of the Void. And then this one, and this one's one of those, just a fun one to throw at you guys. This is the Siege Mastodon from M10. Yeah, this is super easy to get in mint condition. It's a common, and no one cared about it. No one played it. So that has another factor. Pikachu, obviously, is a super desired Pokemon card. Every little kid wanted Pikachu. You know, he's the mascot of the freaking franchise. So, you know, that one's got little grubby handprints all over them, all out in the world. Whereas Siege Mastodon, yeah, no one cares about Siege Mastodon, and that definitely would qualify as junk. That would be such a junk slab, my God. All right, so rule number 4. Is it only valuable if the card gets a PSA 10? This is a pretty big one when it comes to the junk slab argument, I would have to say. So we'll just go ahead and do some quick examples. I won't necessarily go by these one by one, just because you definitely get the point with this. These 3 cards right here, these magic cards, these 2 magic cards, and this 1 Pokemon card are all PSA 10, and therefore they are worth a decent amount of money in the current market. Decent amount being more than they cost to grade and buy the raw card. That's what I would consider. They are profitable cards if you were to send these in and sell them. But if you sent these same cards in expecting a 10 and they came back an 8, oh boy, did you just go to hose town. That would be horrible, because these cards are not worth a lot of money unless they're PSA 10. And with PSA's strict grading scale and other graders as well, I am fully aware that PSA is shut down right now. I'm kind of thinking long term here for for when their doors are back open and we start sending to them again. I honestly can't wait. I'm pretty stoked. But yeah, the PSA 10 situation here, these are only really valuable because they're a 10, at least in the current market. So I'd say, yeah, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. I think you guys really get that concept. And this Pikachu, this one is raw, but if I were to send this card in, this particular one is very, very minty. So it would come back a 9 or a 10. And yeah, it would be worth a decent amount of money in that grade. But if it actually came back a 4 or something like that, I would be in hose town. It would be terrible. So those types of situations are high gambles, but I would not necessarily consider this particular Pikachu a junk card. Now, any random Pikachu you pull out of your shoebox that has a crease, yes, that is a junk card. So you have to be super selective with what you send in, very obviously. And then I'll end on these 2 examples for rule number 4. For the sports card world, I think it applies the most, honestly, of any of them, because the cards don't have any inherent abilities. They are just representations of players. That's a huge difference between, say, sports and Magic and Pokemon. The same rule actually applies to the Marvel cards. They're representative of the characters and the popularity of the certain characters, in this case, certain players. The PSA 9 of this same card, the PSA 10 here, the PSA 9 is worth roughly 3 times as less than the PSA 10. If you have a player who's nowhere near as popular as Zion Williamson and you get their 9 instead of their 10, chances are it's going to be a junk slab. Just throwing that out there. I think that when it comes to this rule, the sports cards are the most susceptible to that particular issue when it comes to junk slabs. So, I mean, honestly, as a general rule, when it comes to junk slabs, sports cards are the ones that are really clogging up the pipeline with potential junk. But, I could be wrong on that. People could be sending in things, they see things that I don't see in sports, and that's totally fine and okay. But I'm just saying, when it comes to rule number 4 of is it only valuable in a PSA 10, sports is the most affected by that. Rule number 5, is the card still worth money even if you get a low grade? If you get a mid grade or a low grade, is the card worth money? If the answer to that is yes, that it is worth money, like good money, then it is definitely not a junk slab. That would be next level kind of thing when it comes to a collectible card. If it's worth money and it's a 2, like this card, let's go ahead and talk about this one. This is a force field from Beta. So there are only, I don't want to quote an exact number, but of this raw card, there's, what is it? It's like 2,000 or something in the world that were ever made of this particular reserve list card from Beta. I mean, it has a super low print run. Alpha's even lower. It's got like 900 or 1,000. Yeah, in a PSA 2, this card is worth $1,000. I mean, it's no joke. Like, I guess it depends on the overall market at the time. I mean, somebody might want to, negotiate you down to 700 or something like that. I mean, you may have some back and forths, but you're getting many hundreds of dollars for this card in a PSA 2. So that's a real big testament to the card itself and its rarity. Same thing with like a Mickey Mantle rookie card or a Babe Ruth card. Those sort of sports cards, if you have a PSA 1 Mickey Mantle, you're looking at thousands of dollars. So those are like the best type, in my opinion. But yeah, and then here goes Clefairy, first edition. We saw this one in an earlier example, but this one's PSA 6, mid-grade. Yeah, the card's worth like $500. So not chump change type of card. Now, if it was PSA 10, it would be worth, oh my God, I don't know, $20,000 or something. So when you compare it apples to apples going up the scale in terms of Clefairies up the grading scale, then yeah, this one's pretty cheap, in quotes. But when you compare it to other graded cards, this surpasses probably 50% of the PSA 10 Pokemon cards in existence because it's the first card, like it's the first set, first edition. That kind of stuff matters a lot. So is the card still valuable even if it gets a bad grade? And these definitely pass. And the majority, I would say, of things probably don't pass that rule unless they're really old, desirable, rare, collectible. All right, so rule number 6 is a fun one too. Is the card actually used in play? This one, of course, pertains mostly to gaming cards, but it can be, the same concept can be applied to sports and the Marvel cards in terms of just how much it gets touched and moved around. That's the key component to this rule. So for things like Chalice of the Void from Magic that we touched on earlier, is it easy to get it in mint condition right now? Yeah, it is. But this card is desired right now because it's useful. So the card, the majority of the people, I guarantee you, the majority of people who get this card are going to play with it. They're not just going to stick it in their binder and never touch it. Some people will, sure, but if they trade it to someone down the road or sell it to someone down the road in raw condition, which most of them, 99.9% of these are going to be raw condition because the general vibe out there is that this is a junk slab, but I'm making this video as a point to show you that that's not always the case. Sometimes you got to think outside the box. And this card, if I were to sell this on the open market raw, chances are it's going to be used. Even if it stays sleeved, if it's shuffled around and thrown on the table and tapped and put in the graveyard and shuffled back, chances are it's going to get a few scuff marks, even just from the case itself. So you're looking at a PSA 8 or 7 just from it being used. So that highly decreases the chance of it getting that perfect gem mint grade, and therefore getting a card like this graded, well, you can in mint condition, is not a junk move. It's actually a smart move if you look at it from that regard, in that regard. It's the exact same concept with Pikachu that we've already touched on. Pikachu was played with to oblivion. As a general rule, these common cards were thrown around everywhere. So the mint condition ones, yeah, they're going to pack a punch for that exact reason. It was desired and played with. And same with these land cards. You use land cards the most of anything. You're always going to throw them out on the table and tap them, sacrifice them, shuffle them. They're always in use. So yeah, having them in pristine mint condition is easy right now in 2021, but years from now, no, the card has high play. So there's one aspect of that rule. And then the other aspect of the rule is if the card sees a lot of play, that also could mean that it's a really good card. So, that's the case with Chalice of the Void, as well as things like, the Moxes and stuff like that from Magic as well. I mean, if it sees heavy play, then it's also desired in a high grade because the card itself is really strong in the game that it comes from. From a totally collector standpoint, that may not matter as much to the individual collector, but as a whole, from where the card gets its value, especially in a trading card game, that matters a lot. So having mint condition versions of cards that see heavy play, big, big win. Rule number 7, is everyone grading it? That's pretty big when it comes to the grading card, to the card grading aspect and the discussion on junk slabs. There's a lot of misconception out there that these junk slabs are going to be considered junk because there's just so damn many of them. There's just so many of the same card that's being graded. But really step back and think about that. So let's take Zion Williamson here as an example again. If you have a Zion Williamson rookie card, even a thing like Hoops, chances are there are a lot of people who sent them into PSA for grading. I mean, he's a super good athlete, really popular star. So yeah, all of these cards, or not all, but the majority of these cards are probably either in PSA's backlog or have already hit it. I mean, I'm sure that if you look it up, there's probably a lot out there. So that qualifies as, is everyone grading it? Yeah, pretty much. Now, when you look at this, the Evolving Wilds Bob Ross land here, is everyone grading it? No, probably not. I've sent a couple in for grading because I'm a weird person like that. But as a general rule, the majority of the Magic community in 2021 is not sending Bob Ross's Evolving Wilds to get graded. So thinking about that, it's kind of the reverse thing with this particular rule, you guys, right? So if it's not being sent off for grading a lot, and it's a desired card with desired art, innate collectability, you would definitely break even or do better if it came back a high grade. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in something like that. I would not consider that a junk slab. Now, some people may disagree with that, of course, and that's totally fair. At the end of the day, this is all an opinion, you guys. These are all opinions. But I would, say that that's a great example of not junk. And I'm not calling Zion Williamson junk either, you guys. Combining it with the other rules. So everybody's sending them in, but not everyone's getting 10s. If you get the 10, that's your gem in the rough kind of a thing. That's a good thing. But there's a lot of 7s and 8s and stuff like that, and those in the current year are junk slabs. Let's be real. You're not going to make back a lot of money on them, and there's just so many out there. So you start combining these rules together, and you see where I'm going with that. All right, so rule number 8. At the surface level, it may sound similar to rule number 7, but stick with me here. Is the population report vulnerable to heavy swings if the card value spikes for the graded card? That's pretty specific. So an example of that would be more in line with Batman. So when it comes to these DC and Marvel cards, especially Marvel cards, there has been a ton of hype and interest around these cards in the recent months. But there's also the counter argument that there are a lot of them in existence. Now, of this particular one that I'm showing here in physical form, there are not a lot of this one, actually. I guess there are. There were technically 100,000 of these boxes made. But that's it. That's all that there is in the whole world. And a lot of them, this is from 94, so a lot were probably destroyed. So this one might not be the best example as a card, but the concept definitely applies to the superhero cards. So let's say Impel's 1990 Marvel set. That one was printed to oblivion, right, in a sense. So there's a lot of those cards out there. But are a lot of them in mint condition? Probably not in their raw form, but there were a lot of sealed products as well that people kept. There are a lot of collectors and stores out there that have sealed boxes of the very first printing from 1990 of Impel Marvel. And therefore, there is a potential. Now, there are a lot of caveats when it comes to those cards. Alignment issues, various printing issues, machine cutting issues. There's all kinds of issues that can deal with the grades on those cards. They're not easy to get 10s in. I'll just say that right now up front. You're not going to send in a handful of them and get 10s. It's not going to happen. But yeah, the fact that there were only like 10, PSA 10 Thors from 1990 made that card go for over $1,000 in the recent months. I don't know if it's gone up or down. I think it's gone down a little bit. There's been a slight retracement in that market, but they're still worth many hundreds of dollars. But as the population report continues to grow, there is a potential for that to impact the prices. So with rule number 8 is it vulnerable? Is your card vulnerable to the population report? In other words, are you sending it in because it has a low population and therefore it has value now? Then, there's potential in that for a flip opportunity, which is what I'm personally going to try with some of these Marvel and DC cards. There are some that I'm going to keep in my personal collection just because I like them. Batman happens to be one of those cards. That's going to stay in there, though I'm going to send multiples, some to sell and some to keep. But as a general rule, those cards are highly susceptible to population report growth. Same with Pikachu, same with Zion Williamson. I mean, that's why they're out there. So these are highly susceptible to, if the population report gets higher and higher and higher, the value goes lower and lower and lower. That's a general rule for pretty much all of the cards. So you have to really factor in all of the other rules in combination with number 8 to decide if it's going to potentially be a junk slab or not, and at what point in time. Because if it's not right now, then that's good. It'll be worth money on the market. You'll make some money. There's no doubt about that. But it's kind of like a game of hot potato if that rule does apply to your particular card. So just keep that in mind. All right, guys, rule number 9. This one is a bit outside the box in a good way. So let me know what you think about this one, because I don't really hear a lot of people talking about this, but I think that there's a lot of relevance here, and I'm making a few plays based on this myself. So maybe I'm a fool, maybe I'm not. You let me know. But rule number 9. Is there a use for the graded card beyond simply having it in your collection? Now that's pretty key, right? So there's a little bit to unpackage there. So I'm not talking about the use of the card in the game's context or the use of the card like what it's, Bidoof can tackle and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the actual physical graded card. Is there a use for it beyond just saying, oh, I got a PSA 10, and so I'm going to put it in my collection of PSA 10s, and it's going to go up in value, and I'm going to be happy. That's totally acceptable, but that's not rule number 9. So this is the clearest example of rule number 9 that I can think of at the moment, and that is these Pokemon lands from Theros Beyond Death in foil. Now, by themselves and with a lot of the other rules, they kind of would qualify as a junk style of slab. But when you think outside the box with rule number 9, there are uses for these graded cards outside of just the fact that it's a land card for Magic and just the fact that it could get a high grade. There are uses here. So, for example, if you're a fan of Magic the Gathering, let's say, and you have a little, room that, a game room or whatever, and you have all PSA 10 graded lands, or even PSA 9. I guess the grade doesn't matter as much, but PSA 10, would be a lot nicer. So we'll just go with 10s. So you have all 5 of the lands in PSA 10. This is a prime example of something that you would actually get a frame for or do some sort of artwork piece with it. Display them in some way. I mean, they're so beautiful as a set. That's the key thing with these cards. As a set. By themselves, yeah, they're nice. You can, if you're a fan of black and black Magic, and you want to display your swamp and be like, yeah, I'm the king of black Magic, whatever, you can do it. But all 5 together in a nice frame on a wall, it's a conversation piece, and it has a lot more value to it for that particular reason. If you were to sell it in that particular fashion as well, you could probably command a higher price because people would see it on full display in terms of the value that it really has. So that's thinking outside the box. For what would normally be considered, quote, junk slabs, these would be beautiful as an art piece. Which leads me to another bizarre type of card, these Magic the Gathering art cards that have been coming out recently in set boxes. So I saved discussing these until rule number 9 because they actually hit quite a few of the other rules, which are fun, like is the card easy to find in mint condition? Currently it is, but in the future, probably not. You know, is it rare or not? Does everyone have it? Is everyone sending it in? Things like that. Like these are just such an ignored thing right now in the Magic card world. And here's the other little fun secret about these art cards. These are technically rarer than the rares from the majority of the sets that they come from. So take that in for a minute. Really let that sink in and think about it. If you thought that these are just pure junk when it comes to rarity and having a lot in mint condition in the future and stuff, there might be some potential in these cards. So I'm going to make a few plays on them. I'm not going to go too crazy, but you'll see. You know, I've already sent a few into PSA when they were actually open, and I plan to keep adding some to my collection as time goes on. And what I mean by they're rare is you can only get these in the set boxes. So the set boxes is only one of 3 product lines. You have the standard box, the set box, and the collector box. They only come in the set box, and you only get 1 per pack. There's only 30 packs per box as opposed to 36 from the draft boxes. They're rarer than the rares when you really look at it like that, because you can get any rare from any of those products, but you can only get the art from that one product. So just let that, just marinate on that for a second. And then I'll just throw these 2 in there for rule number 9. Is there a use beyond, just having them in your collection for cards like this? I personally would say no. Unless you're just a huge fan of Bidoof. Other than that, or the freaking electric energy that's not even foil, there's nothing special about these cards. They're common. These are junk slabs. That's junk slab all day long. So I just want to throw those in there as an example of, I can't redeem those in this particular one. That's a junk slab. All right, guys, and we did it. We're at rule number 10. Rule number 10 is simply, do you actually like the card? That's, at the end of the day, that's an important one. You don't have to meet any of the other rules. If you just like the card and you want it in your personal collection, then it is not a junk slab. Because it's for you. You're the consumer of the card. You're going to keep it. It's not going in the trash. You're probably going to admire it. Therefore, as a collector, you do you. You know what I mean? Now, if you're trying to grade it and put it into the market, then yeah, it's a junk slab. Like that's the difference, right? So we'll go ahead and look at this one because I like this card personally. It's just too funny. I feel like this is what PSA has been doing to us every other month. So this is the Rod of Spanking from Unhinged, right, from 2004. So yeah, this card is not worth a lot of money. It doesn't have high collectability, but it's kind of a funny card. It would be fun to display, and it shows personality for the, oh shit, look at that, I just dropped it. But it shows personality for the person who would actually grade that card. And then you might get lucky in a sense of a financial value in the future because the population report on it would be extremely low. So it's not like everybody out there is going to be grading the Rod of Spanking. So there's only going to be a few out there. So if you have another fan of the Rod of Spanking, then yeah, you have a potential sale on your hands. But as a general rule, this is just a personal favorite card that a person might want to grade and add to their collection. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And in terms of an argument of people are just sending in junk and clogging up the pipeline over at PSA, at the end of the day, if this is what you mean by junk, or if this is what is meant by junk, then no, they're not, because this is it's a card that's going into the personal collection. So that's different. Now, if somebody just grabs a handful of freaking junk and energy cards and played shit and sends it off to PSA, yeah, that's totally, that would be a different scenario. That would all be junk. But I really made this video just to emphasize and show very clear examples that I just don't think that that's the case. This argument of junk slabs clogging up the pipeline, there's not, there is some merit to it, absolutely, especially in relation to sports cards. That's the biggest one. But yeah, I think that if you apply these rules to the majority of the cards that are sent in, you might be surprised with the results if you're thinking about it from that sort of an angle. So agree with me, disagree with me, I don't know, but I just wanted to throw this out there and to add to the conversation around this particular topic and, just make my voice heard just a little bit with all the years of experience that I have collecting, buying, and selling these cards. Just wanted to throw that out there for you guys. So again, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. It really helps. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, as well as PSA submissions, reveals, CGC submissions, now that PSA is out of commission for a while, things like that, definitely subscribe to the channel. Would love to have you on the subscriber list. Thanks again for coming by, and I hope to see you again real soon. Take care.